Fujinami here, aka Tosai Senpai once again. And before I go on, because I did not know this was not happening, let me fix up my stupid chat. I did not realize my chat was not working. Let me see. Alright, so save chat, sign into chat, top chat. Okay, whatever. Okay, so I have a chat here. I need to. Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't even on chat for if there anyone was going to chat on YouTube. So let me just fix this for just a second. Yeah, I don't like this window being so large because it's going to block my freaking notes. Alright, so yeah, so this is Tosa Fujinami, aka Tosa Senpai here. This is, as I was on Monday, I was talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and again, there's been more news about the Switch 2, more news about the world that's going on, and these tariffs, and insider trading, and all this money that's been circling from the poor to the rich, how the rich are getting richer, and I can go a whole spiel with that, but we'll worry about that later. This is not the point of this discussion tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about more of the Nintendo Switch 2. The console first, and then the games, because I have quite a bit to say about the games as well. But first about the console. If you heard me on Monday, I mentioned why the price went to $450, and now the discourse I'm seeing is like, oh, $450 is fine. It's a very good price now. It's not that big of a deal. It's not big of a raise. When originally some people were like, oh, it's so expensive. It's so high. I don't want to pay for that. It's gonna price me out. And now I'm here on the discourse from some of these same YouTubers are all saying, oh, it's a reasonable price. Guess what? The points that I see in the article from IGN that Nintendo made, when Nintendo says it, it makes sense to them. When I said it, it's like I was coming out of my ass. But in the end, I was right. Because I did say, everyone's thinking it was going to be probably $400 because of two main reasons. Competition, and the technology is going up, so the manufacturing of that technology goes up. Again, you have a 1080p screen. You have an 8-inch. You have a 1080p, 120 hertz VRR, HDR, 8-inch screen. Plus, the width of this console still is small. They said new joysticks, which are not Hall sensor, which that's a bunch of crock. It should be Hall sensor joysticks, but they're saying that it's more advanced sticks, magnetic attachments instead of the slide up, slide down that's in the current Switch. So you don't think just that alone, and with competition, like I said, Steam Deck, Asus ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, MSI Claw. Of course, it was gonna go to 400, and then some of the discourse I see from the YouTubers is like, oh, it's like 400 for the console, and then $40. That's 10% for the tariffs, and then so a little kickback bonus. That's the extra $10, 25%. That's the 450. So, and then Nintendo even says the same thing. They raised the price to 450 for three main reasons: manufacturing technology, competition, and tariffs. So that's why I said on Monday, didn't I? So again, just using my brain to figure these things out. Again, I'm not in the video game industry, but I've studied enough business and economics and to see how these things work, and I've played enough games and I've seen how the industry works for so long. Just because I haven't done my own journal reporting, it's very easy to use my brain to figure these things out because I've seen it enough. So, like I said, but again, the 450 now with the tariffs on hiatus, on delay for 90 days. Who knows if they'll happen still, because it could still, those tariffs could still be executed in 90 days. For now, the news I'm hearing is that Nintendo, which began to stockpile some production in Vietnam for the US, they're trying to ramp it up even faster to get it into the US before more tariffs come into place or get triggered. So again, I don't blame Nintendo for doing that. And that's why I said, everyone was saying Nintendo didn't factor the tariffs into the price. Yes, they did. They did already factor it in because they already were aware of the 10%, because the tariffs that were supposed to go up to 40 plus 50 for Vietnam, those got repealed back. However, that 10% on everything is still there. So Nintendo knew there was a 10% still coming in. So again, will they raise the price of the Switch again to future-proof it? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows right now? Because originally that 450 was with the original tariff, 10% tariff in mind. So now, we'll see. I'm not saying Nintendo won't raise the price. I wouldn't be surprised if they do because they want to future proof. If they could do the same thing with with PlayStation, Sony did with PlayStation, I forget which play PS4, PS5, I can't remember, where they raised the price of the console, or Xbox raised it. One of the two, Microsoft or Sony, raised the price further after release because of issues with the supply chain and all that. But that's a different story. Do I think Nintendo will raise it? Will raise it to $500 instead of $450? Maybe. I don't think they will now, because if they do at this point, they're going to get just as much backlash as they did when they delayed the U.S. Pre-order date, because the 450 price was originally factoring just that 10%. And if they want to boost it up, then they're going to get a lot of pushback from fans and consumers, because they're not going to look good in that case. So, like I said, I defended their choice to raise the 450 because it made sense then. If they raise it now, not that I don't think they won't, they could, but they're not. It's not going to be as favorable, because now the reasons that you gave for raising the 450, what's the excuse of 500? Because nothing has happened, nothing has changed from last week. The only thing is, everything that you produced, that you would have produced in China, you already moved to Vietnam for the U.S., so it doesn't matter anyway. So you kind of escaped a little bit with your tail between your legs a little bit there. But again, like I said, we're dealing with a orange doofus in the White House. This orange doofus, quite honestly, if you don't think he was trying to provoke insider trading at all, you don't know this person. You don't think he knew he instigated the insurrection of January 6th back in 2020? I think it's 2020 or 2021? 2020, right? Yeah. Whatever the year was now. 2021. No, it's 2021 now. Yeah, 2020. January 6th, 2021. You don't think he instigated that? Come on, people. But in case, we're not talking about the orange doofus. I'm going to have a whole discussion about him. That made my whole topic next week about the orange doofus, and we won't do gaming anymore. We'll be doing more politics and my own feeling about what's been going on in this stupid country. But that's a different story. Going back to the console, like I said, I just want to basically, again, not to toot my own horn, but I did say the three reasons that they gave, or the three reasons I gave why it was $450. But what I want to talk about tonight is the Switch 2 gaming pricing. Because if you guys watched the Direct last week, there are two price points we're talking about. One, which we started seeing in games for for Sony and Microsoft, the $69.99 or $70 price point for new games, and that's the price that right now with a game like Donkey Kong Bonanza that's coming out, that's priced at $70. But they also announced the other game that was the big game that was announced, because they bookend. At the end was Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then the beginning was Mario Kart World. And the price was not announced for either game during the Direct. It was announced later on. And when they announced the Mario Kart World price, it's ended up being $80. $80. Wow, $79.99. So you're thinking they're saying that's the manufacturer retail price. Retailers could price it lower. They may price it higher. Some people have been quoting it as $90, which is, in some countries, it's $90 in their local currency, not $90 in the United States. So, what does that mean? Basically, it means that we are seeing an artificial $10 bump in new game pricing that Nintendo is starting. Again, it's $10, not $30, because the console without the game packaged is $450. The console with the game Mario Kart World package is $500. There's a $50 discrepancy. That would be the cost of the game if you buy a bundle. And for those of you who think it's gonna be physical, nah, it's not gonna be physical in the package, because if you all remember correctly, Mario Kart World 8 Deluxe was also packaged with the original Nintendo Switch as a bundle. That was always digital. It was never physical. So if you're thinking they're going to offer $50 physical for Mario Kart World in that package, I don't think so. You can hope all you want. It's not going to happen. Nintendo's not going to lose $30 on Mario Kart World by providing it in the package physical when they're going to sell it physical for $30 more. That'd be stupid. And they would know that too. So they're not that stupid. So that's why people are thinking it's $30 more because of the packaging. Now, either it's $10 or $30 more. However, if you view it as $10 more than Donkey Kong Bonanza, then they are officially pumping the price. If you view it as $30 more than what the bundle is, I could see the discourse on why people are complaining and upset because that's a huge chunk of change. $30 is basically two rather popular indie games or one very popular indie game that you can get a lot of value from. Thinking of like Hollow Knight when it first came out, or the Ori games at some point, Ori in the Will of the Wisps, or Ori in the Blind Forest after a while. So that's what happens. But do I like that they raised the price to $80 from $70? Hell no, I don't. I actually don't like this price, to be honest, because again, when Sony and Microsoft raised their prices to $70, it was because it was a net new generation. The PS5 was supposed to be ray tracing and going possibly to 4K, even 8K, and that's the same thing for the Xbox Series X or whatnot. Nintendo, when they went to the Switch, was always going to be able to 1080p. Actually, no, sorry, not 1080p. 720p gaming handheld, and possibly 1080p on the big screens. And even then, it wasn't like it was going to be that big of a deal because by the time they went to 1080p, the PS4 and the Xbox Series One, I believe it was Xbox One, already had 1080p, so there was nothing different about that. So that's why they couldn't boost their prices. Even their Nintendo prices had to go to 60, really. $70, there's been one or two Switch games at 70, but to be honest, do I really care that they went to 70 for one or two games? No, because they probably tried to get away with it, and even then, let's just say this. Tears of the Kingdom is a great game, but it didn't sell as well as Breath of the Wild. Two reasons. One, Tears of the Kingdom is pretty much the same as Breath of the Wild. It's a similar experience, so why are people going to bother playing the same experience and for a more expensive price? So that's how that goes. But now, Nintendo has always priced their games at $59.99. Even the newest games that are out there, for instance, like Odyssey came out around that price. A lot where the Donkey Kong games are, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. You have all these other games like either remakes. For as much as they people thought they were swindling, paying $60 for remakes. What can you do about that? But now they're boosting their most expensive game to $80. It does suck. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that. That sucks. It's horrible. Because if you think about it, what does Mario Kart World do that deserves $80 that, and you guys are, and I'm glad people brought this up in the discourse, is that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to come out soon. And you don't think that game should be $80? You don't think that game people are wondering, is that going to be $100 retail? Because of the fact that if we think Mario Kart World is open world, and you can go whatever you want, and Nintendo's charging $80 without DLC. Let's not forget, there's going to be DLC with this game. You don't think Nintendo's going to try to make money off that too? So that game without DLC is $80. What do you think Rockstar is going to do when they're going to have to release Grand Theft Auto 6 without DLC yet? So Nintendo's basically artificially boosting the price, and this is where, again, corporation. I work for a corporation too. I understand the greed. There's a lot of greed that's going to happen because of this. But before we go into that, like I was saying, third-party developers haven't even gone up to $80. Sony and Microsoft haven't gone to $80. But now Nintendo is. For a standard edition game. Not even a deluxe version, not a limited edition, not a collector's edition, just a standard edition game at $80. And now, I saw the direct for Nintendo, or I saw some of the previews for Nintendo Mario Kart World. I saw some of the photos, videos for it, and all that, how it works, and people are thinking like, hey, the camera's gonna help give it a new experience and all that, and You have all these different things you can do with the game for the open world and all that. But at the end of the day, it's still just a video game. What does it do that could make it cost $80? Now, I understand for one thing, people are talking about the technology. There could be like more ray tracing. You could go you have 24 characters on the screen at one time instead of the 12 right now. They're gonna double it. You have open world, so you have more. You have a bigger environment and bigger expanses. They're gonna try to make sure the loading times are very low and all of that. It's a whole new experience. They're saying so. That's why they're trying to justify the increase in price. It's nothing that you haven't seen before, though. It's not going to be. It's not advancing technology like what Cyberpunk at some point tried to do. 2077 tried to do. It's not going to be advanced technology or advanced graphics that Grand Theft Auto 6 was probably going to try to have to get up to. It's not going to be like what Elden Ring was going to be like. So it's not like Mario Kart World is going to do anything very advanced, because even though the specs for the Switch 2 have increased, they're still inferior to the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and even possibly some of the console PC, some of the mobile PC consoles that are out there. So it's going to be maybe even weaker than the next Lenovo Legion Go 2 or whatever the Asus ROG Ally, whatever they're going to call it next. So this is why I don't understand. I don't agree with the raise in price, because I don't think it makes sense, to be honest, from that perspective. Now, like I said, I want to understand the other side, though. So it's not just me feeling as a consumer. It doesn't feel great that I'm going to be paying $8 for a video game. Here's the thing. You have developers that are developing these games. And if I understand the video game industry from what I've seen before, because it's a little similar to the other parts of entertainment. You have the developers, the engineers who work on the video games. That's the video game studios, the developers. But then sometimes you have a publisher that actually takes the game that a developer makes, and they're the ones that are going to market, sell, blah blah, get the game out to the public. Now, Nintendo, what they do is that they're both the developer and the publisher. So whatever they do, they gain all that money for themselves. If this was like Square Enix, they have studios under them that also develop the games for them. Square Enix is primarily a publisher, because they don't really develop too many of their own games, but they do a little bit of development, but they publish a lot of different games. So the developers for those under Square Enix, for instance, they're losing a cut of the games that they sell, because some of the money has to go to Square Enix. Now with Nintendo, they act both as a developer and a publisher. Now, I don't know how much money the developers make. I don't know how much money, let's say Nintendo, their first-party studios make. But I can almost guarantee it's probably more than, let's say, a third-party developer underneath, let's say, a third-party publisher like Square Enix. But still nowhere near, let's say, what a software engineer makes, let's say, at Google, Microsoft, Netflix, the Mang or Fang, whatever you call companies, Facebook, Meta, Apple, I forgot the other A, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, or Google Alphabet. Yeah, the other is Google, which is Alphabet. But yeah, it's not none of the Fang or Mang companies that are out there, or even now Netflix, or even, let's say, some of the AI companies. So these developers are not making much money developing these games. So maybe they're boosting the price because they want to finally pay the developers more. That's could be a possibility, because the technology is more expensive. You need to pay these developers to actually get the technology, because you're paying for this technology that some of it's not yours, some of it's from third-party sourcing. So you have to pay for that. So you're getting more money to pay the developers to work with it, and you're also paying more for that graphics software. So that could be an option. Another thing is, as people think, like, Nintendo's greedy. They want to get more money, so they want to just raise the price to get more money. There's a discourse that says they could be future-proofing. for the possibility that, let's say, games are going to be more, that the tariffs are coming in and it's going to be more expensive to produce these games. Here's the problem with that. If people are thinking about this, Microsoft and Sony have already started doing this. They are starting to promote, and with the even with the console, what's it called? Some of these other mobile PC consoles. They're trying to enforce or trying to make sure that that digital games becomes a bigger threat or bigger issue or bigger component of purchasing games. So if the digital market is supposed to be bigger, why does Nintendo have to future-proof Mario Kart World at $80 physical? Does it make any sense? Because if you were to see the sales of Mario Kart World as a digital game versus the physical release of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe back on the Switch versus the physical release of Mario Kart 8 World, I could, and I probably should have done this too. I probably could see the digital sales for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are much more than the physical sales. So what are they future-proofing? If you don't make Mario Kart World digital $50 or even $60, then people are going to complain because why are you paying $80 for a digital game when, what are you future-proofing? The physical version is $80 because, let's be honest, you want to make more money off that. Because right now, it's true, they're probably eating a lot of the costs right now making the Switch 2 console $450. So how else are they going to make the money to recoup some of those losses? Through the software, obviously. So they're raising the prices because for the physical console, they're incurring losses. So that's why they have to raise that's why for the artificial price jacking of Mario Kart World. So, and if Mario Kart World, if Nintendo's doing this with Mario Kart World, who knows what else they can do this with? They're already boosting Donkey Kong Bonanza to $70. So right now, that's setting the standard. The standard for Nintendo games during the Switch era was $59.99. $60. That is no different than what Sony and Microsoft did for even the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. No difference. With PS4, PS4, Once when Sony went, now they've got PS5, Xbox Series X, they went to $69.99, $70. So Nintendo, okay, of course, Donkey Kong Bonanza is now $70. Okay, fine, whatever. But Mario Kart World is going to $80. So now because this is done, the fans are not going to, like me, I can understand the future-proofing a little bit because with the tariffs, you never know what's going to happen. But even then, that's a little bunch of crock. The Nintendo Switch 2 system, if you know how it's manufactured, there's so many parts to it. The screen, the buttons, the joysticks, the exterior, the processor, the speakers, all the buttons, the fans, the battery, the different ports for like audio, for a SD card, micro SD card, SD Express card reader. All these parts are in the Switch 2. So, and plus, because all the parts they're trying to be from one country and all that, but even then, you still have to pay for labor. Again, not like in the US where the labor is like jacked up. It's in Vietnam, which the labor is so dirt cheap, but still, it still requires so many different moving parts. With a game, it's just one cartridge with the software. That is much easier to manufacture in bulk and to manufacture it to a point where you can then ship it out. Sure, you also have the case and all that and the printing and all that. Fine, whatever. Printing has happened because the printing press has been going on for so long now. Things can be printed very easily. It's not that hard anymore. It's not. Again, the console is different because of all these delicate parts. The game is just a cartridge, maybe a booklet, a flap, in the case. In the case, if I'm not mistaken, you could produce that anywhere for dirt cheap. So that's what I'm saying. And let's not forget the case. The case, and let's not forget the console. The console, the charging, the cable charger, the box to store it in, and all that. That's why it's all so expensive. And also that's why it's more expensive to produce and package the console. So that's why, to me, it's like, it's not that expensive to produce the game, to manufacture the game, to be honest. So the price of the game is not because it's being it's not the manufacturing cost for that one. If there, and I've seen the discourse, it's like, oh, it's gonna be more expensive to manufacture because of the tariffs and all that. That is bullshit to me. That's bullshit. You don't need to raise it that much, because if you really want to, you could just start enforcing the digital like you were trying to do. And let's forget that. Maybe Nintendo could just produce their own micro SD express card, like they did with the micro SD card, sell that, and make money off that. If you want to go digital and forget this physical crap. So, but again, that's my own rant about the $8 price point. I actually don't like that. The $450 and the $500, I can understand that because that's a much more complicated, delicate manufacturing process. The technology is advanced. So much has gone up. That's why it's hard to not just. That's why for me, it's understandable they have to raise the price, and they're already incurring a loss on the Switch 2 console. If you don't think they are. But for these games, nothing has changed. If they were doing new technology or something like that, then fine, whatever. It's the same cartridge they add, just more memory. Memory has gone cheaper. Micro SD cards of 1 terabyte, 1.5 terabyte are cheaper than they were 5 years ago. So I don't know what Nintendo's trying to pull here. So this is what I don't like. I actually don't like the Nintendo 2 game pricing because of what they did with Mario Kart World. Now, what are the consequences? Because I think this is something that people are trying to say it could be good, it could be bad, and even I want to think. For me, part of me is thinking that this is not, of course, not very good for people, because I'm already hearing the discourse where, okay, if Mario Kart World is going to be $80, what's the incentive of me as a consumer to buy it at $80? Why would you even bother playing at that point? Because the console's already jacked up to $450, some people think, and the game's raised to $80. Even with the bundle at $500, again, it's half a grand, $500. Some people are having trouble just trying to pay their bills, trying to survive, and then now they have to pay $500 for this. It's such an economy where, again, it all goes back to the economy and the doofus. Everything's spiraling out of control. Unlike him, the rest of this country needs to budget what they do on a daily basis, their everyday life. So they have to figure out, is $500 worth it to buy this console in this game? Or do I save that money for maybe a trip that I want to save for in the future, really want to make? Or do I need it for food or just survival for the next month? Or even part of the rent for next month because I needed this. I don't have $500 to spend. It gets really hard to get what's going on here. Now the thing is, Nintendo, unfortunately, they don't really discount their games so much. The retailers will during Black Friday, and maybe that's when people will start buying the game. However, the console probably won't lower in price very much because it just came out. So, if anything, it may raise in price because if the tariffs go into effect and the first stock is gone, the next stock for the holiday will need to raise in price. So now you basically have scared people away, not just from the initial rollout of the Switch 2, but during the holiday rollout, now they're also been scared away. Now, how much is Nintendo trying to stockpile from Vietnam right now? Is it enough to last through the end of the year? They may claim so, but you never know right now because, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets sold out because now because of the tariffs, again, here's the thing, market manipulation. Trust me, the orange doofus is manipulating the markets, and not just Wall Street here. He's manipulating everything. So don't think that he's not aware of this. He's not gonna say it because again, he's an actor Actors are very good at hiding. If he's a very good actor, to be honest. He's a very good actor. You think he sucks at it. He's very good. He's hiding the truth very well. That's what actors do. They twist the truth so that you don't figure it out. And you try to believe them when in the end, he's been playing you all this time. Remember that. He's a very good actor. Businessman, you have these Nobel peace-winning economists that for some reason the everyday people aren't believing, but they'll believe this actor. Keep that in mind for the future when I do another video about the Orange Doofus, how I feel about him and all the other stuff. But going back to the games here. Again, with the high price, it's going to scare away a lot of gamers. And this is my concern. This is my concern about the whole $80 price point. It's going to set a standard that's not going to be very desirable to me. That I think is going to really, really impact a lot of people who are more casual gamers, who just pay a little bit of money for games and they don't want to pay too much. And again, not everyone goes on Metacritic. Not everyone goes on OpenCritic. Not everyone reads IGN or knows of IGN or GameSpot or these other YouTube stuff like that. Sometimes people have time. They look this up. But not everyone is looking up. Everyone's thinking, am I seeing this game in a commercial? Or am I seeing this game being advertised in my emails or on YouTube or whatnot? Or is the main, let's say, streamer or podcaster playing this game? And if the answer is no, a lot of these casual gamers won't go do their research, look up more games. So everyone thinks that the indie market, again, why did the indie market explode? Because there's more people playing games. There's more casual gamers because and when there's more casual gamers because the fact is prices went down. This is why the Xbox Arcade, if I remember correctly, back in the day, the indie arcade, the indie thing that Xbox did was a great thing, was that they allow people to play to see more games and play more. But if games are going so expensive now, if Mario Kart was $80 and not 60, let's say, which it should have been. It should have been 60 to be, or even 70, whatever. It's It's now $80. Now people are gonna have to think, okay, that's $80. So that's $20 more than what I would have liked, or whatnot, even $10 more. If they pay like the console $80. So that's like $20 to $30 of what that you're taking away to purchase, like say, an indie game or two indie games. So that's lesser opportunities for the indie games to thrive. Now, you're all thinking like, hey, there's indie games will still be fine. People are gonna be able to go to the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop or the Nintendo Switch store. Here's the thing: the console's jacked up. Not a lot of people are gonna be Not a lot of people are gonna be buying the Switch 2 console because, quite frankly, it's too expensive for some people. So that's lesser people going to the e-store to look at the indie games. So that's going to go down. So that audience will go down. Again, it slowly goes down until Nintendo finds a way to balance their games to make them not more expensive. Because it's a snowball effect. Nintendo raises the price. You don't think Sony and Microsoft are looking at this and they're like, we're going to raise Grand Theft Auto 6 now, at least 80. The next, there's this rumors of, let's see, the next, whatever is it, some other games. You don't think the next Call of Duty game could be $80? You don't think the next, I don't think Halo's coming or Gears of War is coming soon. The next, the next Elder Scrolls game, that's rumors. You don't think that's going to be 80 at launch? Oh, hell yeah, it's going to be 80. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Final Fantasy IX Remake. You don't think Square Enix is going to the people in the finance departments are like, ooh, that's got to be 80 now. There's no... Final Fantasy IX Remake and the third part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. You don't think those are going to be 80 now? Oh, hell yeah, they're going to be 80 now. You think Sony and Square Enix and all these companies, Bethesda, and all these companies are like chomping at the bit thinking, and Rockstar Games are thinking like, oh yeah, we're going to 80. There's no doubt about it now. and it snowballs, and that if every other game's up to 80, when they were originally 60, a lot of these games were 60 at first. Some of these games could be 60. Now they're bumped to 80. Now that's $20 less that people can use for indie games, for casual gamers to use. And now casual gamers are like, $80, man, I gotta pay $80 for this game? I could have paid 60 and then 20. So yeah, I'll pay for the 80, and now, not only that, now that $20 indie game, you don't pay for that. That's the indie developer who was like, or even for the $10, like, I could have gotten this customer to pay $10 for an indie game, but now they're paying 80 for other game that's like, they had an $80 budget. I can't, now I'm losing that potential player customer because they have to pay for a more expensive game, and my game's like they're going to sacrifice it because that $80 game has the marketing, has the sales, has the customer base, has all the critics talking about it more so. It's basically what happened when indie game was more, when video game was more of a niche hobby, when it was basically, and everyone says like, oh, I knew about like Beyond the Ice Palace, that came out a second game now, or there's some of these Snow Brothers games that are out there. It's like I said, I was a gamer too. I had not heard of these games until they came out with them just now. And it's because, you know why they came out? Because there are enough people that play games that they do their enough casual became more hardcore. They did their research and they started to discover these games. But not all the casual people do that. So if you reverse course and now have lesser gamers playing lesser games and just more of the bigger titles, the AAA games, now gaming becomes, it's harder for casual gamers to stay in it, and they're like, I could do something else. There's a lot of things competing for our attention, and the last thing the video game market needs is to have prices that go jacked up the roof. So there's other options for hobbies that are cheaper, have more benefits, that overshadow gaming, so may turn people away now. And that's why I think this $80 price point, now that's getting started, it's setting a bad precedent. It really is. Again, I think the console jacking price up the price, that had to happen, and that's not because of Nintendo. That we have to blame Valve actually starting off, because Valve released the Steam Deck. It convinced Asus, Lenovo, MSI to come out with their own mobile PC consoles, and because of that, Nintendo that raised the price of the parts. So Nintendo unfortunately joined late to the HD market, to the real HD market, and now they're suffering because all these other PC console makers they jacked up the prices, so Nintendo jacked up. So it's not. I don't blame them. They had to do this because they had no choice. If they're already losing money. They're not going to lose more money, or else they're screwed. So that's why it was unfortunate they had to raise the $450. But that has nothing to do with that. Unfortunately, they came late to market with that. If they had come out with the Switch 2 around the Steam Deck time, then we could complain more. But it's too late now. But the games, this is all there. This is going to be all there. This is on their heads if it starts a snowball effect. Now, the discourse, I was also hearing discourse about, oh, I'm a hardcore gamer. I want it back to be more expensive again. I remember those days when the cartridges were like $90, $100. It was so great to buy it and be the only person to play it. And it's like, I felt like a sense of pride. You know what happens? You know during that back then, for those type of people, there's a reason why there's a stigma of video gaming when it was back as a niche hobby, of a stigma of video gamers. We don't need that anymore. We don't want to go back to that point where it's only a privilege to play video games. Because quite honestly, video games, and I hear the stories about how it saved people's lives mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and quite frankly, I think we need more of those stories. We need more people to play games like, again, there's like games like Neva and Grease and Monument Valley that are teaching people things, or open up people's minds, like these type of games that are more indie, more smaller. And we need people to be able to feel compelled to make those games. But if you're just having a hardcore audience, it doesn't really give a compelling incentive for these indie developers to develop those games when all they're seeing is, if it goes back to niche, the niche is mostly just going to pay the more expensive prices anyway. So what's the point? So you set a precedent if you don't understand that if gaming becomes a niche hobby and prices are expensive, it it makes the video game market smaller. We don't need the video game market to be smaller at this point because, quite frankly, video games has a great place in the world to help people out in different ways. And here's the thing. I will admit, I'm a wrestling fan. I do watch wrestling, and I've kept track of both WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, versus AEW, All Elite Wrestling. When I first started, I was an AEW fan because they were doing something different. They were doing something that WWE was all about casual and all that, and that's how they grew. They grew their business because they were so casual, and they catered towards the casuals, and that's why their business was so large. And AEW at the time was something different because they were trying to say like, hey, we can appeal to everyone, and we can give you wrestling that's not just the casual, but can also hit the hardcore. So they were trying to do both. During the next 5 years, at some point, AEW and Tony Khan focused more on the hardcore, or just wrestling meant for him and for his audience, which is hardcore. And because of that, it's starting to stagnate. It can't grow. But guess what WWE decided to do? They decide sure, you can be casual, but they also realized it's about the story. How can you keep adults entertained? Because the casual, all they care about is the flashiness and the characters and all that. So they kept the characters. But the adults, they realized what became big during the last 10 or so years that have come out. Game of Thrones, Last of Us, what else is there? I'm trying to think of the Squid Games, the Squid Games and all of that. White Lotus. What are these about? Stories. So WWE decided, you know what? We have the characters, we have the flashier characters. Now we just need to make stories because now even kids seem to be gravitating towards these more adult shows. So guess what? They're catering to a more casual audience. And guess what? Their business is exploding. And guess what? AEW's business is stagnating because they're focusing on the hardcore. So take wrestling and now put video game in there. So if you make the prices so high, you just cater to that audience, the video game industry will start to stagnate a little bit, just like AEW has stagnated. Because you don't think Sony, Microsoft, Square Enix, Bethesda, Rockstar, Ubisoft, whatever, Blizzard, you don't think they're going to see this? They're going to see the pricing and they're going to try to cater to that pricing because they want to make profits? It's going to stagnate because people are going to have to sacrifice paying for more of the smaller games to pay a larger game because of FOMO, fear of missing out. So they want to miss out on these larger games that let's say the streamers that are getting paid to play these games, or the podcasters or whatnot, or the YouTubers playing these larger games. So it just stagnates the economy. And then the casual gamers are gone. And then video games stagnates. All those references you see in video games, whether it's in the NBA, WWE, movies, you think that's going to be as strong in the future? Maybe for the larger companies, but the smaller people, you don't know if they're going to, who knows what's going to happen to them, because there's not going to be enough people to play those games or to be interested in it. So that's what's going to happen. That's what I'm worried about. These prices going up is because you're going to scare away a lot of the casual gamers that you need to support every part of the chain here. Not just cater to the hardcore in the niche market and make it niche so that casual people can't come in. Because some of the casual people, if you think about it, some of these casual people are creating the games now. They're the ones that are more creating the games because they realize there's more opportunity. And if you scare them away, you scare more smaller developers from wanting to even take a chance on anything. So that's the problem here. And I think people just don't understand that games should not be raising a price that high. You need to keep it reasonable so that people can actually more people can play the games. Again, when I started playing video games, it was still very niche. Even Sony PlayStation 1 when it came out, gaming was still niche. It was not yet very big. It was not big. Once you hit the PS2, that's when gaming started to explode a lot more. I played during the Game Boy days, the Sega Genesis days. Back then it was still niche, and there was a stigma. They're like, people are laughing at me playing video games. So we don't need to get back to that. We don't. You don't need to do that. Again, sure, industries have cycles and all that, but I think Nintendo here could have tried to make the spin the narrative to make it feel better. So like saying like we're charging $80 because the technology is more expensive and our developers need to work with these tools, so we're gonna pay them more. If the money was going to developers and they clearly made it so, and the developers went on Twitter, went on Blue Sky, went on Discord, went on Instagram, and said like, hey, we're getting paid more now. We're actually getting promised paid more by Nintendo, and that's why I think the game price, sure, they're going up, or it's helping us out. Then yes, the developers need more money. I agree. But for the marketing publishing side of things, no, they don't need more money. Why do they need more money? They're not part of the process. They don't need more money. So I agree there with that. So that's why that's like, ugh. It's so disgusting sometimes. I feel like the rise in price, it's very sketchy and greedy. Now, I like, that's the sketchy and greedy side of things. I agree there. So, but yeah, I've went on to my rants about this. But again, I just want to say my take on the Mario Kart World pricing because, again, I don't want to feel like I'm a corporate shill. But again, like I said, I understand why the Switch 2 console had to go up in price. But I also agree with everyone else. Mario Kart World $80, that's a ripoff. It's a real ripoff unless they defend that the extra cost is going, let's say, going mostly to developers who need it, who need the money. Because they are working like shit. I'm not gonna lie, they're working like shit on shit hours to make deadlines, and it sucks for them. It really does, and they deserve better. And if the price rise in the cost isn't going to them, then Nintendo is shitty for that. But again, that's what I'm saying. Like I said, I think I'm done with my rant for tonight. I'm going to be back on Monday with a topic. Not sure what topic it is right now. I'm going to see the discourse online, figure out something out. Maybe gaming, maybe politics, maybe some other stuff. But thank you for listening to me if you are out there, and definitely follow me and whatnot, or just follow me if you can, and let me know how I can do things better. Like I said, this is only my second podcast video. I'm still starting, so hopefully you can bear with me. It's gonna be a little rough. I'm still trying to fix my layout. Overlay and all that and everything else. But again, this has been Tosa Fujinami, aka Tosa Senpai, and thank you to listening to the other side of the story. Have a good night.